yesterday discussed about the bulkification, how to bulkify a trigger and why we should bulkify. So we'll be considering that as well today, and we'll have this order of execution next, and then next we have this governor limits and how to debug our code and troubleshoot the debugging in Apex. So first one is bulkifying a trigger. So the like the word itself says that how to bulkify, why should we bulkify a trigger. So and what's the mean of this bulkification, a trigger or any Apex class can, if we don't bulkify that, then it will be like it will come or perform most of the time on trigger only. So when trigger, if we don't bulkify a trigger, then it will only work for a single record. So let's say I'm inserting a single record from account or contact or any kind of object, so that will be work on that single record only. But if I'll bulkify that trigger, then if I'll add more than one record, then that trigger will be fired on all the records, like all the 10 number of records, that trigger should work. So we should bulkify our trigger so that whenever any user or any admin will add data in the terms of he will add data in the bulk, he will add, or obviously every organization will add data in a bulk transaction. They will not add one by one. Sometimes it will be happen, but more of the time, if they will be inserting, they will be updating, they will be deleting data in bulk transaction. So that trigger which you are going to write, that should work on that all the records, all the data which that user or admin is going to insert or update. So that's why we bulkify our trigger. So these are some best practices, or how to bulkify a trigger and to avoid these governance limits and all. So these are some best practices. We should not write SOQL inside a for loop, same as DML. We should not write DML inside a for loop, because every time that for loop will go more than 200, then our SOQL will be, the SQL limit will be exceed. So that these are some consideration which should we should consider whenever we are going to write any code. And if we are working with large amount of data, then we should also consider that limit of records, which can be which is only 50,000 for a SQL transaction. So only the 50,000 records can be uh, allow for a SQL for a single query. So that we should keep in mind. And the other thing is it's not necessary for data to fetch data in a SQL. It's not necessary to fetch all the data. So whatever I need to perform any action on which field I am going to perform any action, that should be only that should be only the field which should include in that SQL. We should not fetch unnecessarily data, I'm working with the name field and I'm fetching a phone number which is not used in that trigger. So that we should not fetch that phone field because it is not using. But whenever this SQL will fire, then it will go and it will search for the phone and it will collect all the numbers from that phone number and it will give you the result, whether or not you are going to use that field, but it will give you. So it will take some time, whatever, it will take some amount, like in second or milliseconds of time, but uh, it will impact on your the performance of all the transactions. So it can be if you are, so if your data is in large number of amount, there are millions or billions of data available in the org, then if the trigger or SQL will go to find that phone number, then it will take more time. It can take more than 1 minute as well. So that are some things we should consider whenever we write trigger. So I already mentioned yesterday. Let me open developer console. Yesterday we have written a trigger, and it was already bulkified, and we can I'll go and let me open this. Okay, so this is the trigger. So now I have bulkified it, but let me remove this. Okay, let me add a comment over here and comment over here. So for now it will work for a single record, and if I'll not add here and insert C. So what it will do is it will go. So if this account yesterday whomsoever were not there, so this is the trigger which is on account object. So this is the syntax of trigger, how to write a trigger and trigger name, then on the keyword, and then the object name and the event which we are going to fire for that particular trigger. So after event and after update I'm using. So whenever any record will get inserted or updated, then only this trigger will be fired. So after this event, it will go and check so that I have used this condition if condition. So it will check is this transaction is after or before. So this is after, and here it will check or condition whether it is a insert or update. So both the scenario it will go inside this for loop. So yes, it is a after trigger, and it is a insert or maybe update. So it will go and check here. It will come, and I am iterating this account object from this list of account which is coming from this trigger. So I am iterating this account, and I am storing this account data in this variable scc, and here I am creating a student record. So student C is equal to new student C student, and then I'm giving the name of this student as a test plus account name. Whatever account name will be here, it will appended with this test name, and I'm inserting this. So I have not. So this list I have commented here. I have commented, and here I have commented. So what this trigger will do is it will go and check, and it will insert every single record, every single student for every single account, and it will insert in this for loop. So this DML statement will be fired in this for loop. So let's say I have more than 3,000 or more than 1,000 records inside this tree, which is coming from this trigger. I am updating account via using data loader, and I am updating 1,000 records in account. So if all the records will be coming into this for loop, and every time this DML will be fired. So when it will go more than 150, so we have a limit over here. So DML limit is only 150. So when this limit will exceed, then it will give you error, and it is not possible to handle that error in Apex. So we can't handle if there is a governor limit exceed the error, then we can't handle that error inside our code. So these are some consideration we should keep in mind whenever we are going to write any trigger and any kind of classes. So this is now, and now I'm doing is here I am creating a list of student. So every time, so it is empty right now. I'm creating a list of student, new list, and it's empty. There is no data for, as of now. When it will go in this iteration in this for loop, and it will create a student, then it will go and add this particular student inside this list. So for first account it will go and create a student, and then it will add this student inside this con list. Then for second also it will come and it will create a student, and then again it will go and add this second student inside this con list. So it will be, so there will be 1,000. If there is a 1,000 account coming, then there will be 1,000 student available inside this con list. And then after completing this for loop, when all the student will be added inside this list, then it will go and insert this list at a single time. So only one DML statement will be fired in this case. So this is the bulkification. So we have to handle all the bulkification inside our loop. And we cannot like if I am going to here also, let's say ki I have to search for a student ki whether a student is not with not name with the test. So let me go and search for student. C is equal to st list is equal, okay, here it is. Okay, select name from student. See where name is equal to, sorry, we can't use test, and this. So this SOQL will it is not a right way to write this SOQL inside a for loop. So we should not write this SOQL inside this for loop, because when it's the same scenario only. So if we have 1,000 records inside this loop, inside this list of account, then it will go and fire every single time. So if it will exceed that list, so we have a SOQL limit which is 150 for synchronous and 200 for asynchronous. Will be there is another topic, asynchronous classes, asynchronous Apex, which will be our tomorrow's parts maybe. So we'll come to that. But there will be 200 number of SOQL in asynchronous Apex, and in synchronous there will be only 150. So if inside this Apex, if this for loop will come for that 151 time, so for 150 it will go and fetch all the records from this student every single time. But when it will go come to 151, it will give you the error which cannot be handled. So that kind of some like
Actually, the
issues with the,
select
yeah.
limit is 100 only, no? That is select query.
No, the so the records, how many records can be retrieved via this SOQL is 50,000. But the SOQL, how many time we can write this, or this SOQL will go and search for, it will 50, it is 50, 150 only.
No, already in the select query it will be 100 queries. No? DML it
Oh,
will be
okay. Yeah, yeah,
150,
yeah.
right?
Got it, got it. DML is 150. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Yes, you are correct, Madhu. So 150 is for DML. My mistake here, and 100 is for SOQL. Thank you for that, Madhu. So yeah, I forgot that. So this is for synchronous Apex. It is 100, and asynchronous it is 200. Okay. So yeah, that's we should keep in mind. So this is the bulkification of trigger. And so that also we have governor limits and all. Our next topic will be there, so we'll be come on to that part. And our next topic is order of execution. So do you anyone having any question on the bulkification of trigger, why we should do and how we should do?
Yeah, already. Actually, that suppose I am not doing I mean bulkifying that triggers. Suppose uh, I am inserting 200 records. Okay, that time
Mhm.
it will give an error. Governor limits exceeded. And then what about all records will be rollbacked, or 150 can inserted? How it will be?
No, actually, if that governor limits error will be coming into your transaction, then all the records will be rolled back. So there will not be any like error handling or any kind of thing you cannot write inside your code. So that error cannot be handled at all.
Okay, that
So
no
every
record will be
record,
stored
yeah,
into it. Right?
yes, no records will be inserted or updated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that's about bulkification of a trigger. Now we have this order of execution. So this we have some like step by step thing in Salesforce. So how execution completes in and what's the flow of execution? Like we have so many things available in Salesforce. Like we have workflow rule, assignment rule, we have process builder, triggers, apex classes, validation rule, formula. So there are so many things available in our Salesforce database, or what can I say, CRM. So how this Salesforce perform every single task in which flow or which scenario or which execution order. So there is a order of execution, and this Salesforce will follow this order of execution in terms of when you fire any DMA, like when you insert, update, upsert, or delete a record, then that order of execution will be it will be your task will be in this order of execution. So every time when we are creating a data model of any requirement, or when we are going to write any trigger, or taking any action on our requirement, we should keep in mind all of these points, like which task will be fired first and which task will be fired after that and all. So this is the order of execution. Like first it will check all the validation, like system validation. So there are some system validation, like a email field. So the email field is it having a system validation. There is not a custom validation. So all the system validation are this the, which this is provided by the Salesforce. We don't need to write anything for that validation. So let's say we have an email field over in our account object. So there is a system validation over that field, which will check that field with the exact format of the email. Like which you are writing, whatever you are writing inside that field, it will go and check every time that this format, this data which is coming inside this email field is correct or not. So that is the system validation. There are something like mandatory field and all. So it will go and check that if that field is, but so we have a name field is mandatory. So this will go and check that mandatory field is coming or not. So whether that particular record is having a value inside this mandatory or required field or not. So these system validation rule will be fired first, and then it will go and check your before trigger. So we have two type of trigger, like before and after. So it first it will go and check your system validation, then it will come to your before trigger. So let's say I am updating a trigger, sorry, I'm updating a account object with phone number, which is mandatory field, and it is having a custom validation that will go and check for that this phone field should have a length of digit which is 10 number of only. So in India we have 10 number of digit inside our phone loop for phone digit. So that digit should be only 10, not more than that, not less than that. So these kind of custom validation rule we can write. So that so it will go first check that this phone number is a mandatory field, so it is coming or not, whether it is having any value inside that phone or not. If there is no value, then it will not come to your before trigger, or it will not come to your custom validation. It will just give you the error that saying that like your required field is missing, data cannot be inserted. Then it will if there is data, then it will go and check your before insert. Let's say I am updating a contact record based on that phone number updation. So it will update that contact record uh, if that action you are firing in your before event. So that event should be before trigger, like before insert or before update. If it is a after trigger, then it will not come over here. It will come over here. Execute. Sorry, it will come over here. Execute after trigger. So before trigger will be fired, then it will come your custom validation rule. So now it will go and check your 10 number of digit, and if it is okay, then it will go to the next part. Otherwise, it will throw an error. Then this is the flow. So it will go and check your duplication rule. We have some duplication rule, like all the data should not be duplicated. So these are some duplication rule we can write over the object. Then it will go into this fifth part. So it will say save the record, but it will not commit. So all the whatever commit you are using for that record, it will not be committed. And then it will execute the after trigger. So all the after trigger will be executed over here. Every single task you are performing in after event of this trigger, then it will fire here. Then it will go and execute this assignment rule. So I have already mentioned that assignment rule is nothing but the assignment of your task. So whenever you create any task and you assign to someone, then it will go and check that assignment rule, like if that trigger or that action or the transaction is performing on the task object or any other object which is coming, which is creating or updating the task, then it will go and assign that task to particular user. And then it will go and execute the auto response rule. So if we have something like whenever any lead created, then we have a auto response rule which will be like responding, or which will be sending some emails to that particular user, like I'm filling a form on my website, on your website, and there is a auto response rule that will send an email to that particular user who have filled that form. So that kind of auto response rule we can write over in Salesforce. So it will be fired over here. Then it will go and execute the workflow rule. Then it will go and execute. So here we have some other thing as well. So when this workflow rule will update a field. So other, like we have four actions in workflow rule. So first is like email alert, outbound message, to create a task, and update a field. So for three other actions, it will be the same scenario. But the last one, which is update a field, if you if you update a field in that only, in the same object. Let's say ki I am updating a phone number in account object, and this workflow rule over here will also updating a email field which is also available inside this account. It will not updating other object field. It is updating the same account field only. Then it will, from here it will not go to 10 number of this execution order. It will again go to this validation rule, then again go and follow this like path. Then again it will come. Now if this workflow rule have fired once, and it will coming the second time, then it will not go here. It will now go to this 10th. So it will stop here. It will not fire again. It will go and check the process builder. So this ninth point we should keep in mind every time, that whenever any updation is coming from this workflow rule on the same object, then it will like this path will be following for one more time. Then if this is the second time, then it will not be following, and then it will go to this execution of process builder. Okay. And then this other thing will be fired. So process builder, then execute escalation rule, then so there are some other rules which are not more important, but you can also go through once you have time, and you can find on the trailhead or maybe help document on the Salesforce. So yeah, and then it will come to this update roll-up summary field. So if you have created any roll-up summary field, then it will be updating your roll-up summary field. Then criteria based sharing rule, if there is criteria based sharing rule, then commit, and then all the logic which like sending in email and all will be fired. So this is the order of execution in Salesforce. So every time when we insert, update, or delete any record, then this or the task or whatever action we have performed or used, which that actions will be in this order of execution. So this is very very important. Every single interview, the interviewer can, or like 80% chances are there ki that interviewer will be asking this question. So what is the order of execution? So these thing, if you don't know, remember, no problem at all. But this first 5 or 10 thing you should keep in mind, that that first system validation, then before trigger, then custom validation, then this uh, so this you should keep in mind. So uh, or remember this one. So order of execution is a very important thing. Any question on that? Okay, so our next topic is governance limits. So this order of execution, like for now I can't able to show you, because if I'll go and create every single task, like there are so many tasks available here. So if I'll go and create every single task, then it will take some another day. So you just go and try and practice for that, and create every single task for a particular object, and you will get it more clearly, that how this execution are performing in Salesforce. Okay, so we have governor limits, as I am always talking about this. So this governor limits is very, very, very important. Every interviewer will ask this question. I can say 99% interview will be having this question. What, or maybe one from this. So we have so many like governance limits like these. Yeah, so this SQL limits, the number of records can be retrieved, the DML limits. So there are so many limits. So this is a table. You can find this table on help document of Salesforce. So anyone, like he or she can be asked, like how many records we can find, we can retrieve via this SQL. So you should keep in mind that 50,000 only the limit, and how many DML we can issue per transaction. So there will be 150. So these are some governance limits you should remember all the time, because every single interview will be having this question. Okay, so as you all know, like governor limits, we have this Salesforce runs on this multi-tenant environment, and because of that only, like there are so many customer who are using Salesforce database at a single time. So the all the resources are shared with every single customer or partner. So there are some governor limits to give you a best performance for that. So that all the kernel limits we should keep in mind whenever we are writing a code, or whenever we are performing with the data. So these are some types of governor limits. There are no like a specific type, but a per transaction and static apex limits. So there are apex limits, there are lightning platform limit also. So these are not segregated on the basis of the type, but there is a, like you can segregate, or you can bifurcate those limits over these types. So yeah, these are some governor limits. I'm not going to speak every thing about it, but you just go and I'll be updating this, I'll be uploading this PPT, and you just go once with it, and try to remember everything. Like these are some most important things, like number of SQL, number of record can be retrieved by SQL, and this SOSL, how many, only 20 can be, we can use only 20 SOSL at a single transaction. We can only retrieve 2000 record in SOSL. So these are some limits. DML, how many DML we can, right? So there are other things like approval dot process inside that DML, and empty recycle bin. So in this case we have 10,000. So these are some like governance limits available in Salesforce, and there are more like these are not limitless. So these there are so many governance limits. So whenever you will be working with the live data, then you will get more clearly. But for now, for the interview purpose, you should keep in mind these limits at least. Okay, so these are some governance limits. Just go through once with this and try to remember every single governance limits. Okay, so our last topic is that debugging and troubleshooting in Apex. So every, as you all know, like every programming language have this debug thing. So in C or C++ or maybe like in on that, like we have this printf kind of in Java, println we have in so in Salesforce and sorry in Apex we have this system.debug. So the how to like so debugging is something which we can print our data or we can debug our transaction, how it performing and how it displaying. So that we can debug and we can troubleshoot that particular transaction in a way where we can segregate or where we can like see how this single transaction in performing and where my action is performing. So these are some like there are uh, two path or two tool which we can use to debug our transaction or action, and we can see our debug log or troubleshooting log over here. So we can also see the debug log on the developer console, and we can create a debug log inside our Apex sorry Salesforce database, and we can see over there as well. For a like we can create a debug log for particular user, and this there is some access or thing which we should give to a particular user who are able who should be able to see the debug log. So there is a checkbox available in profile that should be enabled for this debugging and troubleshooting thing. And in developer console we simple, if I want to debug a single line or a single list or anything, then I just simply go and write this system.debug which we have earlier used. So system.debug, and whatever you will write in a single code, that will be coming as a static. Then if I'm creating a list over here, so here is the list of this, and this will go and display over here, then it will. So this is the so I'm not spelling it out. So concatenation, sorry sorry about that. So that is the single the keyword which is available to append to like string. So here we can append with this plus sign. So I guess in PHP we have a dot sign, and in Java I guess also we have this dot or maybe plus sign to append those two strings. So here this plus sign will be available to append those two. So this is the system.debug we can use to debug a single line. But if you want to generate a log for your transaction, let's say ki I'm creating a account record or I'm updating a record, then whatever thing or whatever action will be performing on that particular transaction, that I should debug that, and I should check the troubleshooting which is happening behind the scene. So so here we can see here in this log. So here it is empty for now because I have not updated or inserted any record inside the Salesforce for now. Let me go and create an account so that you will see that debug log over there. So I'll go here and I'll create a test account, test SEC, and I'll save this. Okay, so this record will saved over here. Behind the scene, this three transaction perform will perform. So you can see over here. So this is the timing and date uh, of the transaction, and what is it using the browser of application, your browser application, and the operation will be so these are some operation keywords. So and what is the status, so success or error or warning, so this status will be displaying over here. So if you have read this, then it will be this read statement will be changed over read, and now it is unread because we have not opened this, and this is the size of this transaction. Let me go and open this one. So how you can see the debug log. So this is so transaction started at 10:40. So now like the timing can be differences because mm, we have like okay. So now it is I have set maybe the time over Indian time, because of this it is showing this. But yeah, when you don't have set any time, then it can be changed. So this is the debug log for this transaction. So it will go and check all the duplicate rule and all on the account. We have this duplicate rule, so it will go and check. So no record have found a duplicate for this transaction. If I'll go and check this second debug log, then it will have some more data. So here is the full transaction of this account. It will go and display you the ID of user. Who is the user? Aladdin at the sfdc.com. This is my username, and this is the ID of this user, and the timing and all the thing it will display you. And what is the like yeah, triggers, and it is using, so whatever action it is using this transaction, it will display over here. So it is using account sorry, trigger, because we have this account trigger over here on this account. So it will go based on this transaction, it will check whether it is having any action. So it is having a trigger. And what is the name of this trigger? This trigger is like check license key status. So there is some another trigger over here on this account. I am having a trigger. Let me open that as well. Check, yeah. So I have already created another trigger, which is this check license key statement. So I have another trigger on this account. So it will first go on this trigger. So it will display you the name of this trigger, check license key status on account trigger before insert. So it will give you the event as well, so before insert and all. So the name of this trigger, and it will go and give you the byte detail, every byte detail. So what happened, it will go and check this like it is running or not. Hello, are you getting my voice?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Okay, one moment guys, there is some problem in my laptop, maybe the screen have gone, I guess. uh, Let me join my mobile.
This conference will now be recorded. Now be recorded. Now be recorded. Now be recorded. Now be recorded.
Hello. Hello, are you getting my voice? Hello. Hey Madhu, Sudeep, sorry, Raj, Vijay, are you getting my voice?
Yeah, yes, Aladdin, we are getting.
Okay, 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 got it. So actually, I'm connecting with my mobile. Actually, my laptop. Oh, come on, maybe. Okay, leave it. So here I can say, okay, okay. So these are here it will go and check the the status of this trigger. It is true or false, like it is performing or not. So it will go and return true, and here it will return somewhere the list of this trigger. So it is using this list. So I have created a list over here. So this is the list of list. It is using here the license list and new list of license. So it will go and create a new list of license which is empty for now. So it is showing the empty, and here it is performing the SOQL. So all the transaction line by line you can see over here. So all the like it is performing this action and this SOQL, and you can see all that like query locator and all. And here you can see how many data you have used in this transaction. So the number of SQL, how many SQL have been used? So one out of 100. So there is a limit of 100, and you have used one. If you have used 50, then it will give you the 50. So how many query rows you have retrieved? Zero. It is not retrieved any. So that is like that. Maybe that criteria is not satisfied, so it is not retrieving any data. So it is giving the detail all the how many SOSL, how many DML statements. So all the governance limits over here also you can see how many used, how many are remaining. Okay, then it will go and check another. So we have another trigger. So hit here it is ending. Then it will go and check the duplicate. So there are some duplicate rule available on this account. So if there is no action on that, so it will not fire that. Then it will go and check our trigger, which is we have written over here account trigger on account, and this is the name of trigger. It will go and fire, and then here we have iterating the account. So this ACC is the variable name, and it is iterating, and it is here it is displaying all the values which is coming after before insert. And you can see all the like owner ID, what is the owner ID of this account, who is created, license approved. All the field will be retrieved via this it will be coming in this list trigger.new, and you can see over here. So in debug log you can see every time, and so in this fifth line you can see the student C, which is storing as a C. So I have created a student here. Let me open. So I here in this line number 5. So I have created so before it was not available here. So it is uh, so I have not saved this actually. So it is giving the line number 5 to me. So it was this before. So student C is available in line 5, and it is creating a new student over there. And it you can see what is happening over here in line number 5. It is creating a C as a student, and it's empty for now. It's there is no value for this, and it is creating, and it is assigning the name of this to test. And what is the account name? Test ACC. It is appending test with this test ACC, and it is giving assigning the name to this name field. And then it will go and it will check again this ACC, because only one record we have inserted. So second time it will return the null. then it will come on your insert part. It will close the for loop, it will close the if condition, then it will go and insert your student. So this is the validation rule we have created on the student. If you have remembered, so age should be more than 18 and it will go and check this formula. So there are some validation rule you can see over here in the debug log also. So this capture date when record get permanently closed. So this is the, so maybe this is the workflow rule, like you can see over here workflow, and we have created a workflow rule over here on this student object. So all the transaction which are happening, or any transaction you can see over here. So for this transaction you can see the limits. So DML, how many DML, two DML have been fired, one SOQL have been used, so two DML rows have been retrieved. So these are some data you can see by using debug log. And there is some